Jackie, and I am the Emerging Tech Specialist for the Muskegon Area District Library. Thanks for joining us for our Introduction into Microsoft Excel Part 2. Quick recap of what we covered in our last episode. We've started our Excel workbook. We are making a faux checkbook, and we've started customizing the information that we want included. So we've worked on changing the sizes of our columns and rows, text color, and organization. And now we're going to start to get into a little bit of the more complicated stuff, such as formulas. All right, let's get started. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to click off. I'm going to look at this. It looks pretty nice, except I find that with everything centered, it sometimes can be hard to see where the line is, where the divider is. So we have this really interesting tool that's called the border tool. Now, because I want to apply specific lines, specific borders, I'm going to come up here. I'm going to click on one cell at a time. I'm on A1, so that's my first cell. I'm going to come up here to my font command group, and it looks like a little square here. If I click on the arrow next to it, these are going to be all of my border options. I'm going to come down here, line color. I'm just going to pick white. I might kick you off. That's totally fine. We're going to come back up to the border, click on that little side arrow again. I would just like a border to the right. So I would like a border separating my columns. And then when I'm happy with that, I'm going to click on the next one. I'm going to say I would like a right border. And I'm just going to work my way down the line. Okay, and now I have some really nice borders up there. That makes it a little bit easier to tell that these are separate categories, especially since payment form is 2 words. That could get confusing if I didn't have some borders in there. Now, really quick, what we're going to look at, we're going to do a print preview. And to do that, we're going to go over to our File tab. We're going to go to our Print. We should see something perfect. Because we've put some information in, it's going to assume that we want to print that. Okay, so now you'll notice we've got this information up here that we put in, but the rest of the page is blank. Those cell lines that we see in our workbook are just to help us. So those are not actually going to print. So when we're building our faux checkbook, that's something we just want to keep in mind. We will not be seeing those lines. So if we need something a little extra to help us differentiate between columns and rows, we need to do that now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to look at the rest of my body here. I'm actually going to add some colors to my columns now because I can see later on, if I just have a whole bunch of information here, it might get confusing as to what I'm talking about. So I'm going to click, instead of clicking on the number 1, which highlights all the way across, I'm going to click on the letter A. That's going to select this entire column. Now I like this first cell the way it is, so I'm going to hold Control on my keyboard, click on A1, and that's going to deselect A1. So now my first cell that I have selected is going to be A2. You'll notice it does have the green line around it. I'm going to choose a color for this entire column. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say, I would like you to be a lighter version of that. Okay, all right. Then I'm going to click off so I can see what it looks like. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm going to do that for all of these columns. So I'm going to alternate columns. One will be white and one will be this kind of minty green. I'm going to click on the C because that's going to be the next column I do. Hold down Control. I'm going to move over to the letter E and I'm going to click on E. That selects the entire E column. I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to let go of Control. I'm going to move over to G. I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to click on G. Super, I have those 3 columns selected. I'm alternating column colors. I'm going to come back here and I'm just going to say I don't want my first row selected. So again, I'm going to hold down Control. Control's a really big key in this. And I'm just going to click on C1. That deselects that. I'm going to come over to E1. I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to click on E1. I'm going to come over to G1. I'm going to hold down Control. I'm I'm going to click on G1. Perfect. So now I've got C2 down, E2 and down, and G2 and down are selected. So I'm going to come back up here to my paint bucket, and I'm going to apply those colors to them. When I click off, we'll notice I've got this. Okay, I think it looks pretty good. Now what we're going to do, before we go check our print preview, we are going to talk about what we need in order to see our print page. So we are going to navigate over to Page Layout in our menu ribbon. Click there, and we're going to look up, we have this command group called the Page Setup, and one of the choices is Print Area. Before we do that, we are going to decide how big we would like our page to be. So right now we're at 100%. I'm going to zoom out a bit more just so I can get a feel for it. I'm going to click on A1 because I definitely want that to be the first column. I'm going to go out to I just to give myself a little wiggle room. And I'm going to come down. Oh, that probably looks like it's about a page size-ish. Holding down Shift, you're going to move diagonally from A1. So it's not going to be perfect. We can always change it later. This is just so we can see what we're working with. Hold down Shift on the keyboard, click on a cell, diagonal from A1. It's not quite the layout of a page, but it'll do for now. Now we're going to come up to the print area. We're going to click on that, and we're going to have an option to set the print area. Go ahead and click on that. It's thinking about it. We're going to go to File, Print. There we go. Now mine, I went a little bit too wide. It's got this extra bit on it. That's fine. We're not worried about it. We just wanted to be able to see what our page looks like. And that's what he's going to look like. And I think that looks pretty good. All right, so I'm going to zoom back into 100%. We've got a pretty nice way of differentiating our columns, but we're having a little bit of trouble, maybe seeing our row differentiations. So I'm going to click up here on this little triangle. That selects everything. And that's fine because I would like to apply this to everything. I'm going to come up here to Home, click on that. I'm going to go back to our border options. I'm going to click on that little down arrow, and I would like to apply all borders. Click on that. Okay, now that looks really nice in my colored columns, but because I chose white, you'll notice that that's not going to show up on the white columns, which makes sense. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to choose my B column. Hold down Control. I'm going to choose my D column. Hold down Control. I'm going to choose my F column. And then I'm going to come back, do the same thing, and click on that first cell. B, D, F, holding down Control. So now I have column B selected except for the first, column D selected except for the first, column F selected except for the first. I'm going to come up here to my border options. I'm going to change the line color. I'm going to make it a little bit darker just so we can see it. It's deselected everything, but that's okay. If I come back up here to my all borders, let's see if it'll do it for me. I would like all borders. There we go. Okay, so now we've got some nice borders. If we come over to File, Print, now I have lines for all of my borders. It's a little bit easier to tell what column is what. I think that looks pretty good. Okay. So now we have our faux checkbook formatted. It looks pretty readable. We've got our differentiations between our rows and our columns. It makes it a little bit easier to read. We've stylized it a little bit. We're going to talk about formatting our cells. So let's talk about some of our formatting options. For example, one of our formatting options is I would like every value entered within my withdrawal column to appear in red. It's kind of a reminder like, hey, you're taking your own money. I'm going to click on the letter E at the top. That selects my entire withdrawal column. When we want to affect every single one of our columns, we're going to make sure that we right-click on the letter at the top, E. So I'm going to right-click here. I'm going to get this pop-up menu, and one of the options is called Format Cells. I'm going to move my cursor down there. I'm going to click on that. Then I'm going to see this pop-up box. This pop-up box lets me say what exactly is going to be in my withdrawal column. I am in the first tab of my Format Cells box. I'm going to be entering currencies. I would like 2 decimal places. I would like a dollar symbol. And then we can choose what our negative amounts look like. I see there's a red one right there. I'd actually also like a minus sign in mine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the second one down. It's red. I like that. It's just kind of a visual reminder for me, but you can choose whichever one you'd like. And then in our category, I'm going to navigate down to custom. So this is where things get a little bit complicated. And you'll see we've got this type in here. What I'm going to do is we're going to talk about how you can format it. Now this can get a little bit complicated, so if you're ever at a loss, come over here, choose your category you want like we just did. You know, we just chose our currency. We picked what we wanted to see. You come down to custom, and it'll give you the format for what that will look like. All of the dollar amounts that I put in there are going to be negative. I know that. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this first chunk of text because it's always going to be red. And then between the red and the dollar sign, I'm going to add a negative sign. So I always want my text to be red. I always want it to be negative. I always want there to be a dollar sign. I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm saying, oh, I had an $8 withdrawal. I'll put just the number 8. I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. Now it is negative $8. Okay, now I've spent $56.84. Negative 56.84. So that's going to tell me you're taking out this money. The formulas within the format cells can be a little complicated, so if you're lost or confused, just try to stick with the pre-formatted ones. You know, there were options for currency. Work with what you've got. So that's how we make it look nice. How do we make it think for us too? So we are going to add a category to our balance column in order to make it calculate our balance for us. So I would like the first box of my balance to always tell me my total. So I'm going to click here. I'm going to hit the equal sign. The equal sign tells Excel that we are going to be feeding it a formula that we want it to complete for us. So now I'm going to put in a number. This number is going to be our starting balance. So let's say you have $500 in your bank account right now. $500. And I would like to take out minus all of the money in column E. So I'm going to say, okay, I would like $500 minus the sum total of column E. To do an entire column, you would do parentheses, E to E. I'm going to close it. So that's telling it, think $500 minus the sum total of E. But, you know, maybe I'm putting some deposits in. So I would like to add, it's a plus sign, the sum total of column F. So F to F. I'm going to last parentheses. When you're happy, hit enter. It's doing my math for me now. Now you'll notice we see the number here, but we don't see our formula. What if we want to change our formula? You know, maybe we're starting with $0. Maybe you want a clean slate. I don't want to start with any money. Everything I have in my bank, I want out of sight, out of mind. That's saved money. If you click on the cell with your balance, you'll notice it appears here. You can come back and edit this at any time. We could say, I want $0. I want to see exactly how much I've spent and gained in a month without any outside influence. Well, we're in the red. It happens. I'm gonna click back on here. You know, maybe we're all super rich, right? We'd all like to be super rich. Maybe you have, you know, tons of zeros in that bank account. We don't have to worry about anything. We're loaded. Um, so you can come back and edit this however you'd like it to be. And that's just a nice way of putting these formulas to work for you. Okay, got our balance, deposit, withdrawal, category. Okay, let's look at, you know, we talked about stylizing our withdrawal category. Let's talk about stylizing our deposit category. Click on the F because I want this to be the whole column. I'm going to right click on the F. I'm going to format those cells. It is going to be currency. It's always going to be positive. I would like it to always be black. It is just money, 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 money. Okay. Cool beans. And then say, well, you know, I spent all that money, but I got a check for $20. It's doing my math for me. I like that a lot. Okay, and just to make sure it balances out, I'm going to do 20 over here. I'm going to do 8. And I'm going to do, what is it, 56, 84. If it's doing our math correctly, our balance should say 500 after this. It says 500. We're doing good math, and we don't have to do any of the math, which is what Excel is good for. Okay, now we can keep track of our dates over here. Date is another pre-programmed format. I'm going to click on the top, select all of that good stuff, right click on A. We're going to format the cells. One of the options here is date, so we can choose how we would like our date to appear. I would like it to say 3/14/2012. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. So today is the 21st. It's going to add the 2020 in automatically because it knows what year it is. You can make that appear however you want. Payment form. I'm going to say it was cash. Description. You know, I went to Meyer. Category. We have another option that we can explore a little bit here. Under our categories, I would like to have specific choices that people can pick from, but I don't want to be able to write in just anything. So let's say, you know, I want there to be a list of like gas, groceries, stuff like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move over to a column we're not using. So just over to the right hand side, just going to start typing, and I'm going to make a list, 1 word per cell, of the items that I would like to be available to choose from the categories. So for example, you know, maybe I spent money on gas, maybe it was okay, what we're going to do once we have our list, we're going to come over here to our categories. We're going to click on that first cell because we're just going to do a test run to make sure it looks how we want. We're going to come up to our menu ribbon and we're going to click on Data. Under Data, we're going to come over to Data Tools and we're going to look at the Data Validation tab. So we're going to click right on that. This is going to open up a submenu window for us. Right now, we are under the settings, which is where we would like to be. And it says you can put in any value. Well, that's what we want to change. We want to limit what sort of value we can put in that cell. So we're going to click on that drop-down menu under Allow, and we're going to choose List. Right now, the Ignore Blank might be checked. We're going to uncheck that because we'd like to include a blank cell. And then for our source, we're going to click in the box. We're going to move back over to our screen. We're going to click one cell above our list. So the first one I'd like to be a blank. And then I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard and I'm going to click on the last one. What that does is it selects everything between the first cell and the last cell that I clicked on. And then I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so it doesn't look like anything's really changed, but you'll notice now, next to my first category cell, there's this little down arrow. If I click on that, There's my list. Super. That's exactly what I want. And I've got the option to have a blank as my first cell, which I want for the cells that I haven't filled out yet. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to click on the D column. I'm going to hold down Control and click on Category because I don't want to include the first cell. I've already formatted that. Now I've got everything else selected. I'm going to come back up to my Data menu ribbon. I'm going to come over to the Data Tools command group, and I'm going to click on Data Validation again. Now you might see a pop-up that says this selection contains more than one type of validation. Erase the current settings and continue. Yes, because that first cell has a different setting than the rest of them. I want to make all of them like that. So now it says allow any value again. Okay, I'm going to make it a list again. I'm going to uncheck ignore blank because I would like to include a blank cell. I'm going to click inside of the source box, and then I'm going to click the first blank cell above my list. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click on the last cell. So there should be a little dotted green box around my list. And I'm going to hit OK. And now, if I go to any of these categories, perfect. I'm seeing this little drop down arrow next to them, which means there's my choices. Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see. Awesome. All right, so now I can say, oh, well, I spent $8 at Meijer on, I didn't put grocery on here. We'll just say repairs for now. Okay, so this is a really good way to make Excel work for you. Now, the format we used is a checkbook, but you can really do this with anything. You know, you can use it to categorize your books. If you want to make your own home library, you can keep track of your books and who checks out what and when. Excel has some really awesome complicated tools, and we're really just scratching the surface here, but this is a pretty good introduction to some of the tools that you should feel comfortable being able to play around with, making it work for you. So now what we're going to do, we've got our basic fake checkbook kind of set up here. We've got our categories. Let's say you are like me and you forgot to put in groceries and you just remembered. Well, I'm going to say, oh, I want grocery too. Come back here. I'm going to select my entire column except for the category tab because I like that. I'm going to come back up to data validation, and because they are all the same, it didn't give me that pop-up warning. So it went right to the data validation. So that's good because I thought they were all going to be the same. I didn't get a warning that they weren't. Perfect. So under source, I'm just going to say, well, actually, you know what? There's one more I'd like to include. See, I've got my green dotted line box again. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to click on grocery. I'm going to include that, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, if I come back here, there's grocery. Perfect. Okay, awesome. Now, let's just put in a couple different credit card. I'm just going to do whatever. It doesn't matter. We'll say this was the 25th. That event hasn't even happened yet. Doesn't matter. I just want to get some different things in here so we can see some of the options once you're done with your checkbook. So let's say I'm not very good at keeping track of my expenditures. What we can do now is we can come up here and we can say, well, actually, you know, I'd like to organize this by the date. What you can do, we can select this information here. Let's say we have deposits. We don't, but you might. Well, I would actually like these to be numerically ordered. So you can come to your data, you can do sort, and we're actually going to look right next to it. There's the A to Z, that's oldest to newest. Clicking on that, it'll organize it for us. It keeps these locked in order. So you'll notice this is still the correct row. It didn't just move the dates around. So that's a good way to organize it. Perhaps there's a different way you'd like to organize this. You know, maybe you want to see what you spent the most on. if instead of clicking on the oldest to newest, we're going to click on the sort button under the sort and filter in our data menu ribbon. So we're going to click on sort. We're going to get this pop-up. We have checked right now my data has headers, which is correct. We do. So what this does is it looks for those headers. Right now we're sorting by date. We can choose how we deposit. So we're going to go maybe to withdrawal. And we're going to sort smallest to largest. And we're going to say, okay, yeah, that sounds good. I would like to see what I spent the most money on. So actually, I'm going to do largest to smallest. Super. So now I can see, oh, well, I paid my electricity bill at Meyer with my credit card on February 3rd, and it was $56.84. That's crazy. And that just is a different way of organizing your information. So you can really reorganize it however you need to, but it's still going to keep everything in order for you, which is really nice. Okay, we'll take a break there. Check back in next time for our introduction to Microsoft Publisher. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments, or you can visit the Muskegon Area District Library's website at madl, madl.org, and you can fill out our contact form there and reach out to us with any questions. Remember, the Muskegon Area District Library serves Muskegon County with 10 local branches, and you can access our digital resources 24/7 by visiting our website. Thanks! See you next time!